So these are Jossie's words. I have worn many hats in my life: girl, woman, daughter, sister, friend, woman with mental illness, American, Canadian, and those are just the basics. There are so many other hats I have worn, or at least tried on. I tried, as I became older, to navigate all those hats in my life. Through my childhood, my teenage years, young adult years, and now my middle years. I have taken those hats off and on again and again, trying to make sense of each rite of passage. Now take all those hats and live them with a serious mental illness, an up-down mental illness, a psychotic illness that twists every experience in its path. Every one of those hats is bruised by it, is informed by it. My mental illness made it really hard to establish an identity, to really wear a hat. This especially when I was so obsessed with appearing normal. Normal woman hat, if there is even such a thing. Bipolar disorder can lead to a lot of trouble, and not just the numbing low of depression. There is the sweet seduction of mania, so pleasant at first, before the psychosis and the darkness hit. It can often feel so glorious and liberating. It can bring with it the need to spend money, to shop in a frenzy for so many things, big and small. This is something the depressed me understands little about, except in the form of regrets and maxed out credit cards. Is the normal me when I am depressed, lost, down, and out? Is that my baseline? I have lost track over the years. Maybe take some pills, achieve a state that appears to be of normalcy, a state where I am better. Is that the real me? Am I walking around with a normal mood that is only such thanks to medication? And mania, the me that laughs and talks loudly, sees things golden and pure, fast and efficient. Surely that is me, the real me. Take more Seroquel, Zyprexa, Haldol, more Thorazine. Beat it back like a small fire. Beat it back to normalcy, whatever that is. Some tell me that rather than creating a new personality, the drugs just peel back the sick layers and reveal the real me. I don't buy it. We haven't seen the real me in decades. With all of this going on, it is hard to work out just how the concept of disability shapes my life. There is a disabled me, that's for sure, a disabled hat. Although I try not to incorporate it too much into my identity, I cannot dismiss it entirely. But I am not just a manic depressive, a schizophrenic, a drunk, a nervous wreck. I have a mental illness, but it does not define me. It may shade all my selves, all my hats. It may create disability, but it is not the first thing out of the gate. Sometimes I see that my illness is with me everywhere I turn. And sometimes I think that is not such a bad thing. I ask what I would have been like without it, without my illness. But what am I because of it? Surely I can find positives out of it. I am more compassionate, more sensitive, more forgiving than I would have been without my illness. When I experience true happiness, I am more thankful than I might have been. When I see a person who is obviously struggling on the street, I am more concerned. I am not afraid.
Chapter 13. And I was starting to struggle with mania, unpleasant mania that went too far. Mania that would reach psychotic territory, which was often pretty scary. At the point of manic psychosis, my voices would stretch up to a level that made sorting other people's words out truly difficult. Sometimes I felt on top of the world, powerful and entertaining, and yet, other times, the rush of it all was sending me down a dangerous line, my head spinning too quickly to be able to put the brakes on, my voices screaming at me, the sleepless nights endless. On one occasion in the spring of 1998, I found myself back on the psych ward, feeling rough and unruly. Dr. S was on my case again. We were not getting along. "Jocelyn," he said to me, "because you are not cooperating, I am putting you on a form again. I don't want to do this. I want your stay to be voluntary, but you don't seem to be open to that option." He was very serious. I stayed still, looking away from him. "Fine, that's fine with me. Do whatever you want. I obviously don't get a vote in this. I'm going to have to get you a sitter. Do you really want that?" He was pushing me. "Whatever," was all I said. Later, after 10 days or so, Dr. S and I had another unpleasant conversation. "So, we are talking about getting you off a form. Do you really think you can handle yourself with your mood? I think you are pretty manic." What was he talking about? "I am not at all manic," I stated. This idea sounded crazy to me. He was making a whole bunch of shit up. "On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put your mood, with 10 being really manic?" he asked me. He had another clutch of students in the room. 6, I said. A nice, steady 6. "Well, I'm not sure about that," he said with certainty. "I would say you are an 8, maybe even 9. You are high up there. You know, normally you are dour, you are introverted, you keep to yourself. I understand you have had a couple of altercations with other patients, and you appear to be hearing voices. That is not a 6. What could I say? To argue with him would only strengthen his case against me. He had all the power. I left the room feeling like a trapped animal. It was during this hospitalization, the first time I was in that single-room corridor with my very own sitter, that a very vocal woman kept me up at all hours. She was howling profanities at the orderlies and nurses. I could hear them discussing restraints. When I did walk by her room, I was shocked. There was a beautiful 40-something woman, her hair in place, totally normal looking, swaying back and forth as she stood facing her sitter. I could hear another rush of profanity as I walked away down the corridor. It gave me a complete shock to see her, looking like she belonged in a business suit, her mind completely out of control. And I was only 2 rooms